At magandang hapon po sa lahat ng nakikinig sa atin. Dito lamang sa ating nag-iisang Radyo Migrante sa Vibe 105, your main source. Maaari nyo rin kami pakinggan sa www.vibe105to.com, sa Bell 5973, Rogers Digital Cable 945 at sa tunein.com sa inyong mga web browsers or smartphones at hanapin lamang ang Vibe 105.5 FM. Ang inyong pong makakasama ngayong hapong ito ay ang inyong tagapaglingkod na si Rhea Gamana. Kuya Jacris and Fatima are not here with me today, pero tinulungan naman nila ako. At si Ish pala, tinulungan nila akong to put up together itong napakagandang episode ngayong hapong ito. Let me just introduce to you briefly ang ating guest. Well, we will talk to her later, sa ating feature interview. Si Genevieve Armstrong, isa siyang public health nurse, sa TB program or tuberculosis program ng Toronto Public Health, and she conducts community outreach and education on TB. So, mag-hi ka naman, Genevieve.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back. I think it's been about 3 years since I was last here, so I'm thrilled to be back.
Welcome again. So, ang topic kasi natin, the reason why Genevieve is here is the World TB Day, which will be on March 24th. And bakit kailangang pag-usapan yung tuberculosis? Kasi even though here in Canada, it's not as parang prevalent, tama ba? Pero sa Pilipinas kasi, ang tindi, Ang tindi ng kaso ng tuberculosis. And not just only in the Philippines, but it's also very prevalent in globally, So pag-uusapan natin mamaya, how is it impacting our kababayans when it comes to TB, and why is there stigma, and how is it very important to actually talk about beyond the March 24th awareness, which is one day. So mamaya yan sa ating feature interview. Okay, meron tayong news and headlines ngayong hapon to, sa pakinggan natin. At sa una nating balita, OFWs lose thousands of dollars as Thornhill Remittance Company shuts down shop. Members of Filipino community in Greater Toronto area have been sharing their stories and calling for justice after Mabini Express, a remittance company that was located in Promenade Mall, closed up shop suddenly, resulting in the loss of thousands of dollars. The business catered to the community with customers who would send over large sums of money to their family and friends in the Philippines. It had been in operation for 25 years. Constable Laura Nicole from New York Regional Police confirmed that they had received approximately 20 victims' reports dating from January 22nd and onwards, but that no charges had been laid yet. We have had quite a high number of individuals come forward, and regardless to a loss of money, our investigators are looking into this, Nicole said. Since the closure of Mabini Express, people have lost money, have found each other online, and are now collectively seeking legal representation while emotionally supporting each other. It's not about money, it's the trust. You own people, you share the same immigration story. If you can't trust your own people, who can you trust? Said Michelle Lucas, whose parents lost $10,000 to Mabini Express. Ang pangalawa po nating balita, Duterte wants to quit the International Criminal Court. President Rodrigo Duterte will withdraw the Philippines from the Rome Statute, the treaty that established the International Criminal Court or ICC, according to a statement released to reports in Manila on Wednesday, March 14th. The move comes about a month after the ICC opened a preliminary examination into thousands of deaths linked to its violent campaign against suspected drug users and dealers. A preliminary examination is used to determine if there is a reasonable basis to proceed with an investigation, in this case, into charges of crimes against humanity. Duterte's statement said the decision to withdraw was because of baseless, unprecedented, and outrageous attacks by United Nations officials and an attempt by the ICC prosecutor to seek jurisdiction in violation of due process and presumption of innocence. It read, I therefore declare and forthwith give notice as President of the Republic of the Philippines that the Philippines is withdrawing its ratification of the Rome Statute effective immediately. And according to the Rome Statute, a state party's withdrawal takes effect 1 year after the United Nations Secretary General receives written notification. The statement argued that the rule does not apply because there appears to be fraud in entering such agreement. At ang huli po nating balita, Duterte devoid of integrity to assert for OFW's human rights mula po to sa migrante. Global Alliance of Overseas Filipinos, Migrante International blasted President Duterte anew for withdrawing the Philippines' adherence to the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, saying he has zero integrity to assert for the rights of OFWs. Shame on Duterte. How can the Philippines demand respect for OFWs of host countries if we have a president who completely disregards human rights and leaves no room for scrutiny of fellows in the international community? He is the ultimate stumbling block in attaining genuine protection for migrant Filipinos, said Arman Hernando, chairperson of Migrante Philippines. Hernando expressed grave concern that the shameful act of the president came at a time when the Philippines is undergoing negotiations with the government of Kuwait on a bilateral agreement that will govern on 300,000 Filipinos in the Middle East country. The group is also held a globally coordination protest action on March 17th, which marked the 23rd death anniversary of domestic helper Flor Contemplacion. They demanded an end to modern-day slavery, which they claim is being continued by the Duterte administration through its labor export program. At doon po nagtatapos ang ating news and headlines ngayong hapong ito. Bago po tayo tumungo sa ating puso na migrante, ay pakinggan muna natin ang isang awitin mula po sa mga kaibigan natin sa south of the border. Ito po ang mass base at ang awitin nila ay ang Milk and Honey. Pakinggan po natin. Okay, sa ating puso na migrante naman ay pakikinggan natin ang dalawa sa mga kaibigan natin mula sa Montreal and sa Kabisig Society, which is from Fort Saskatchewan, north of Alberta, ito po si Neil Ladode, isa po siyang organizer with the Montreal-based Temporary Foreign Workers Association, which is a non-profit organization dedicating 24-hour continuous support, donated assistance, and solutions to all foreign workers residing through Canada regardless of the circumstances or situation. And the next one is Clarice Truscott, is from Kabisig Society, a support group based for Filipinos in Fort Saskatchewan, north of Alberta. They will be talking about how important organizing with the community and challenge the system for the marginalized and underrepresented. Kaya pakinggan natin ang Pulso ng Migrante.
Hi, my name is Neil Ladode. I'm from Montreal. I'm part of Temporary Foreign Worker Association based in Montreal. Our members is around Quebec, and what we do is to get organized and mobilize our members, get their story and their voice, and push forward what we call to improve the living condition and working condition for the members of Temporary Foreign Workers. My expectation, especially today's Congress, is to learn more how migrant to Canada get organized, and so far getting more like to have membership around. To build identity of Philippines as origin Indonesia. I also like to see how in the future, like Indonesian identity can be more also connected to their homeland and from like migrant Canada. So that's expectation is to learn and get maybe also how to have collaboration in the future project with the Temporary Foreign Worker of in Montreal and also national, because we also have work together to ally and partnership to push forward our demands. Like in the past we have 4 Info out, and now we have permanent residency in arrival for the migrant workers. Since we are new in the term of we are in coming on, we trying to build our website or web page, so that's the way that we can get reach out, not only through Immigrant Worker Center, but it's also maybe specifically to the temporary foreign workers and the keyword temporary foreign workers itself, and they can connect us immediately direct. So far we have no direct connected. So, just physically, just like for example, attending the conference like this, so we have a one-on-one to reach out more nationally. Because that's our big challenge to how to reach out more people with ally and also members. Because the character of the temporary worker is really isolated and no mobility and so on.
Terima kasih.
Oh, sama-sama.
My name's Clarice Trescott. I am with an organization called Kabisig Society of Fort Saskatchewan. We have been a registered nonprofit organization since 2013, but our organization has actually been very active in pushing for change for migrant workers for the past 15 years. So it is our first time to attend the conference, and I was actually very pleased to see the same struggles and the same issues that a lot of organizations across Canada have faced, in particular in the mobilizing of migrant workers or Filipino communities in our respective towns and cities. So one of the problems that we saw in our community, for example, is sort of breaking down the barriers of sort of rallying and mobilizing people. We find that because of the way we have been educated in the Philippines, where you do not question, it is something that I personally have become passionate about, to get people involved and questioning why they're migrating. And it's not just looking into the perspective of helping your own families, but looking at the whole issue, the general issue of why we've migrated into other countries to work. So my expectations coming to the Migrante Congress is basically to get support from other organizations, to connect with other organizations, and to also study and learn what they've done and network with them, because I believe, and certainly our organization believes, that we can do better when we're collaborating with each other. So I've been very pleased with the outcome, and I've been very pleased with the support and the encouragement that I've seen here today. And I've certainly felt very encouraged to go back to my organization and do some changes, and not be afraid to speak up against a fascist regime, because it is so important that people understand what the issues are. And we don't expect to change the whole system, but if we can get people involved in just questioning and thinking and basically understanding why we're here, I think that's a success story. Actually, our organization's been working very closely with Migrante Alberta, so we're learning a lot, a lot of new things and how to mobilize and how to come together. So we started 50 years ago. We've basically become, it's almost like a club. There were not many Filipinos in Fort Saskatchewan, the town that I lived in. But as soon as we see someone new, and it started out with the caregivers. So we actually had a whole bunch of caregivers move into our communities, and we've seen issues like, not getting any days off, or we meet them at the local church, and they tell us their stories. They don't know anyone. They're isolated in their employers' homes, and that's how we got to know the issues. And so from there, it started. Our organization kind of started with just finding a place, inviting them to our homes, inviting these caregivers to our homes to cook the food that they can't cook in their employers' homes, and that's how we connect with them. And so that's basically for the past 10 years. And then in about 2006, we noticed a whole bunch of temporary foreign workers started working at the local fast food places. So the ones that started the organization, a lot of us are citizens and permanent residents. So we just got curious about what the program was about. And so we connected with the people. We invited them over for coffee and find out what the temporary foreign program was even. And so we've been involved with it ever since. And we really, we were so immersed in the issues, and we really sort of learned a lot about the problems that they're facing. So the first thing that we did was to connect them to local immigrant service providers, and that's how we learned about the Catholic Social Services, the Edmonton Immigrant Service Association, and that's eventually we got connected to Migrante Alberta. So short history.
Maraming salamat, Ish, sa pagkalap ng ating puso ngayong hapong ito. At kayo po ay nakikinig dito lamang sa nag-iisang Radyo Migrante sa Vibe 105, your main source. At maaari nyo rin kaming pakinggan sa www.vibe105to.com, sa Bell 5973, Rogers Digital Cable 945, or sa tunein.com sa inyong mga web browsers or smartphones. Kung kayo po ay kaka-tune in lamang ngayong hapong ito, ay pag-uusapan natin ang World TV Day, which will be on March 24th, but we'll be talking about it early. And siguro moving forward, no? Paano binabaka yung stigma, no? How do people actually face stigma when we talk about tuberculosis? And moving forward, how do we actually get this, yung advocacy better, get this information out better after March 24th. So, let me introduce to you again ang ating guest ngayong hapong ito. Siya po si Genevieve Armstrong. Isa po siyang public health nurse in the tuberculosis program at Toronto Public Health, and she conducts community outreach and education on TB. So again, welcome to the show, Genevieve.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here again.
And we're so glad that you again are gracing us in this show. So maraming salamat. Okay, so checkahan na tayo, no? Let's talk about TB. So what is TB, no? And how it actually gets spread sa mga tao.
So TB is a bacteria, also called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And in fact, I think what most people don't know is that there are actually two types of TB. So the first, TB infection, the second, TB disease. So when someone has TB infection, it means that they've been exposed to the bacteria, but it's dormant, or I like to say it's sleeping in their body. They don't have any signs or symptoms. If they had a chest x-ray, it would be normal, but they can take preventative medication to prevent that bacteria from waking up later in life. Now, TB disease also means that the person's been exposed to the bacteria, but now it's active, it's multiplying and replicating in their body. They would have some of the classic signs and symptoms of TB, which includes a cough, but a cough that's lasting for a minimum of 3 weeks or longer, fever, chills, night sweats, unexplained weight loss, fatigue. If they had a chest x-ray, it would be abnormal, and they would have to take medication to be treated and cured.
So posible na anyone can have a TB infection na nandito lang. For example, I could possibly have that inside, but it's not known, or kasi wala akong nararamdaman.
Exactly. And I'll talk about how you would know if you have the TB bacteria, but I just wanted to sort of just briefly touch about how it's spread.
Okay, go ahead.
So TB is an airborne disease. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions around the transmission of TB. So it's only spread through the air when someone coughs, sneezes, or maybe sings. But you cannot get TB through sharing cutlery, shaking somebody's hand, taking public transportation. And it actually requires close, frequent, and prolonged contact. So if I had TB, who do you think would be at highest risk of getting TB from me, Rhea?
Yeah.
A question for you. Who do you think would be at higher risk?
Your husband?
Yes, my husband.
Yeah.
So the people who I live with or spend the most time with. And in fact, your chances of getting the flu from someone are actually much higher than getting tuberculosis.
Okay. So, siguro I will ask you kasi when I was reading your fact sheet, no, yung Tagalog na fact sheet, sabi doon, lahat ng gamot sa TB ay libre.
Yes.
Yes. But my question actually is, can anyone have access to it regarding sa status? When we talk about status, immigration status.
And that's a really great question. So TB medications are all free through public health, regardless of your immigration status. Because TB is an infectious disease, our role as public health is to protect the public, ensure that everyone has access to treatment, and to provide support to those who require TB care. So, yes, anybody, whether you're undocumented, a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, it doesn't matter. You have access to free TB medications.
So hindi nyo tinatanong, no? You don't actually ask the patient.
No, we don't actually ask what your status is, in order for you to obtain your medications, which is great. I mean, globally, TB meds are supposed to be free. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily always the case.
Right.
Even in the Philippines. So we're very lucky here, I think, to have access to free TB meds.
So since you mentioned the Philippines, no, you had the PowerPoint that you shared, and it's one of the countries na napaka taas ng kaso ng TB. It's like what?
It's one of the top, according to the World Health Organization. It's actually one of the top 22 high burden TB countries.
Bakit ganon? Bakit isa siya sa pinakamataas na one of the countries that actually have the high cases of tuberculosis?
Well, I think that's there's multiple factors that play into a role of why there are high rates of TB in the Philippines. I mean, one, I think, is probably good access to universal health care could be definitely one of the issues. Second, I know TB meds, like I had mentioned, are supposed to be free globally, but I can speak to a personal experience where unfortunately my aunt had TB in Manila. Meds were supposed to be free. They weren't. And she unfortunately passed away.
Oh, no.
So I think it's a number of things. Universal access to universal health care, being properly diagnosed. People who live in rural areas of the Philippines probably have very challenging times to get access to even having an X-ray done, right? So I think that, and also it's a country with a high population density.
Yes.
I think Filipinos, I mean, I remember growing up, there were like 3 families living in a 2-bedroom apartment. So
you grew up in the Philippines, right?
no, I grew up here.
Here, okay.
But very close with my extended family, Lola, Lolo, Titos, everybody. So, and I think it's probably the same there, right? Everyone lives sort of closely knitted together. Family's very important. And so that, and also living conditions also play a role into the spread of TB. So I don't think there's one clear-cut answer as to why there are high rates of TB. I think there are multiple reasons, but those are just a few.
And when you contract TB, kapag nahawa ka na ng TB disease, no? Disease, okay. There's always a stigma kasi laging sinasabi na, ay, makakahawa ka, nakakamatay yan. Yung, those kinds of very rude, stigmatized statements. As a medical professional like yourself, paano mo hinahandle yung ganong klaseng situations?
For sure. And it's not, and that's why why I'm here today really, and why it's important to talk about it with the globally, but in particular with the Filipino community as well, because TB is a disease that's often highly stigmatized, not just among Philippine culture, but in many, many, many cultures. But just my understanding on some of the stigma related to TB in the Philippine community is it's a disease that's often related to the poor, or it's considered dirty or dangerous. But the problem with stigma and why we need to address it, and I'll talk about how we address it, is it often results in a delayed diagnosis, or people are afraid to access treatment. But I just want to give you an example of how TB can affect anybody. So a former president of the Philippines, actually, Manuel Quezon, actually had TB. So it's
Yun naman pala eh.
so it's not a disease of the poor. But how we address that as healthcare professionals, and an example is me being on this show today, is really through education and raising awareness. And so we go out into the community. We actually, this World TB Day, we're really trying to push for social media to get the word out. So I'll talk a little bit about more, but really the main key, I think education is power, right? And
yes.
knowledge. And so our goal is to really try to educate marginalized communities, the general public, even healthcare providers. We actually do a lot of education around TB, and that it's preventable, treatable, and curable. And we also look at the cultural considerations in relation to stigma and how we address it.
Gaano kalala ang problema ng tuberculosis, not only in the Philippines and maybe in Canada, but globally?
Yes.
No? Gaano kalala ang problema?
So actually, it's now the leading cause of death due to an infectious disease, as per the World Health Organization. And 1/4 of the world actually has been infected with the TB bacteria. So they have TB infection. Approximately 10 million people get sick with TB globally. Wow. And unfortunately, 1.5 million people die due to TB. Fortunately, that doesn't happen. So for example, in the Philippines, it's a 6th leading cause of death there. About 75 Filipinos die every day. But fortunately here in Canada, we're just not considered a TB endemic area. We have good access to treatment and healthcare. But that just gives you an idea of how much it is of an issue worldwide. Yeah.
And now, because it's an issue, how do you cure it now? I mean, paano mo gagamutin ang TB infection at saka yung TB disease na sinabi mo?
Yeah. So the good thing is, and I should mention that one way to also raise awareness is there's a lot of push for political will to get leaders in all different countries around the world to put TB on the agenda. Actually, in September, the United Nations is going to have their first high-end level meeting on TB, the first ever. Wow. So that's gonna be a big call to action. But going back to your question around TB infection, TB disease, the great thing is it is treatable. So anyone who has TB disease will have to take medications for a minimum of 6 months or longer. So it is long, depending on how sick you are. And anyone who wants to take preventative medications, they can take a medication either for 4 months. There's another antibiotic where you take for 9 months.
Okay. So, ngayon ang tanong ko, how important it is to actually talk about this in the Filipino community? Kasi we're talking about stigma. Nobody wants to talk about TB because ngayon nakakahawa, nakakamatay, etc.
Yeah.
Bakit importante siyang pag-usapan?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, it is a TB endemic area. The Philippines is a TB endemic area. But from a local perspective, if we look at the number of people who get sick in Toronto every year with TB, we actually have approximately 300 people who get sick every year with TB, of which many of the people who get sick are born in the Philippines.
Wow.
And so that's why it's important for us to talk about it. I mean, the top 3, just to give everybody an idea of what TB rates look like in Toronto, the top 3 countries, and this rotates every year, are the Philippines, China, and India. But that rotates every year. One year might be the Philippines, another year might be India. So that's why it's important for us to talk about it here in Toronto.
It's interesting when you say that it actually rotates. Why is that it actually rotates?
Well, I actually think too, right? You have to think of Toronto is a very, the beauty of Toronto, and one of my favorite things, it's a very multicultural city, right? But I think the TB rates in Toronto are actually also reflective of our immigration patterns in Toronto. And in fact, approximately 92% of the people who get sick with TB are foreign born
Wow.
in Toronto.
In Toronto alone.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, I also want to talk about yung TB program ng Toronto Public Health. Can you share that to our listeners?
Sure. So there's a wide variety of services that we provide. A lot of it is available on our website. So if you go to www.toronto.ca/health/TB, we provide a variety of services in addition to providing TB care to those who get sick with TB in Toronto. But we have I guess my main role is to provide TB resources, educational sessions. So I'm happy to go out in any community really to speak about TB and help raise awareness. And we also take any general questions around TB. So we get a lot of calls from all over, healthcare providers, the general public. So if you have any questions about TB, you can always call us at 416-338-7600.
And also, I want to ask you, what can our kababayans expect on March 24th, World TB Day?
Yes, I'm really excited. It's one of my favorite times of the year. So World TB Day, March 24th, look out for the CN Tower and the 3D Toronto sign at City Hall because it will be lit up in red in honor of World TB Day. Also visit Toronto Public Health social media pages, so Facebook, Twitter, and please share, like, retweet our post or post on your own. If you have a personal story or if you're just trying to help raise awareness, post on your own. So that's what's happening for World TB Day.
And it's not just beyond March 24, right? I mean, when you do your information campaign on TB, on tuberculosis, it's all year round, tama?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone can actually contact you to do it at some point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We do educational sessions all 365 days throughout the year. Well, except holidays. But, but
Right.
we do, we'll come out on the weekends. We're very flexible. We want to build relationships with our community. So we're happy to come at any time. And it's not just around World TB Day. We're always out in the community throughout the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're almost done
with
this. Yeah, I know.
Flies.
It flies like crazy. Pero siguro I wanna ask you,
Yes.
any message that you wanna, let our kababayans know, your final message para sa kanila.
Sure. As I mentioned, there's a lot of stigma around TB. We really don't need to be afraid because it is a disease that's preventable, treatable, and curable. And so I want to reinforce for anyone, regardless of your status, you should feel free to come to us as public health. And also, one important thing I want to say is it doesn't impact your immigration status. So a common concern actually I get is a lot of people are afraid that they'll be deported if they ever got sick with TB, but we actually don't report to immigration in regards to your TB status. So that's one important message I think I want to make clear to everybody.
Ayun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Genevieve,
That was great.
Yes. Genevieve Armstrong she's a nurse, no? Mula po sa Toronto Public Health, advocating for TB awareness, no? Okay. So, siguro to wrap up this episode, tama yung sinabi mo because Canada has a good access to medical care.
Yes.
And the Philippines is not much. So, I wanna put this back to the Philippine government, yung basic social service na healthcare, it should be free.
Yeah.
And affordable. Because the problem is, whenever you are sick in the Philippines, pumupunta ka sa doctor, you actually have to pay for the doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, the taxes should be enough to actually get the payment for the doctor, dun sa mga gamot, for TB, for example. And it's not happening in the Philippines. And that's sad kasi when you look at the numbers, nung nakita natin yung numbers on the Philippines, it's a big risk, no, to tuberculosis. It's alarming.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
And the Philippine government should be alarmed on that, kasi
And especially for diseases like TB, that's a public health concern.
it is,
right?
It is. It is a public matter, and
Yeah.
therefore it should be addressed publicly. Kaya lang right now with what's happening in the Philippines, it's not one of their major concerns, unfortunately.
No.
So I guess the call is, you need to make sure, or you need to wake up from this, because the data sets itself, it's already scientific. It's there right in front of us. It's there right in front of you. So therefore, it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed faster. Kasi, like you said, 6 every day
Yeah.
namamatay.
75 Filipinos die every day. Yeah.
And what does it say with the
Yeah.
Philippine healthcare
Yeah.
system?
Yeah.
No? So
what you could do is help us raise awareness, right?
and that's why we're doing this. And beyond that, and
Yes.
beyond that, I mean, there is always, we gotta have to pass the accountability, to the government in the Philippines, kasi where else can people actually rely help, no?
Yeah.
We know that there's a lot of migrants, are actually workers leaving actually from the Philippines in order to have a better life.
For sure.
I mean, right now, there's actually 6,000 Filipinos leaving, and the problem is there's just no work. Healthcare is not accessible at any cost. So that's why a lot of people actually die. So, if you guys are listening out there, I mean, we're live. I mean, wake up. Wake up, because it's true. I mean, it's a stigma, and like you said, it's hard to battle stigma kasi it's there,
Yeah.
no? Pero there's a way to actually fight the stigma.
And that's why we got to keep talking about it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kasi kung hindi, I mean, it's just gonna die on its own, and people will keep on having that stigma. At hindi basta nawawala ang stigma, yun ang problema. It's not gonna go away on its own. So again, you have to face the stigma. You have to face how to actually move forward from it and get better.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so sakto lang, no? Ang daming, there's not much time, but unfortunately, we have to go for now. Pero before we go, actually, so we have some announcements muna. Let's see. The announcements, yes. Migrante Ontario, a Filipino member organization of Migrante Canada that promotes rights and welfare of workers, will be holding its General Assembly on April 7, 2008 from 12 noon to 6 p.m. at 31 Wellesley Street East, Toronto, M4Y3A6. More than 30 members will come together to assess past year's endeavor and create a general plan of action that will resonate this year's theme: reinvigorate the Filipino migrant workers' struggle for rights and welfare in Ontario. At kung gusto niyo po ng more information, you may contact 647-281-0652 on regarding the Migrante Ontario General Assembly. At join the Filipino Workers Conference 2018. Their theme is Uniting Filipino Workers for Good Jobs, Fairness, and Justice. This will be on April 14, 2018 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 25 Cecil Street, Toronto, Ontario. For more information, please contact Paulina Corpus at 416-320-8703. Once again, 416-320-8703. At bago tayo umalis, do you have anything to say? Shout outs? You can go ahead.
I just want to thank really the Migrante organization for being so welcoming and having me throughout the years. It's been a while since I've been here, so I'm really happy to be back, and I'm happy to be back in Toronto. I was out of the country for a little bit, so I'm looking forward to building more on the relationships and working closely more with the Filipino community. It feels good to work with my people.
And we will continue to do so.
Yes.
That's an assurance right there. Okay, so salamat Genevieve. Maraming
Thank you.
walang anuman at maraming salamat po sa mga nakikinig dito sa atin sa Radyo Migrante sa Vibe 105 your main source at maraming salamat sa bumubuo ng Radyo Migrante Collective sa tulong-tulong na pagbuo nitong episode na ito. At ang huli po nating awitin ngayong hapong ito ay mula po kay Joey Ayala. Ito po ay ang Karaniwang Tao. So we'll hear from you next weekend and have a great Sunday.